So yeah, we're exploring this this final stage of the Noble Eightfold Path, which has been our theme, and that stage is samadhi. But we thought we'd explore samadhi through the five Buddha mandala. So when you get to the last stage of the Noble Eightfold Path, we're getting close towards the goal of the Buddhist path, Buddhist wisdom. And that wisdom having particular qualities to it. And the five Buddha mandala is a way of exploring those qualities. I mean, the Noble Eightfold Path is a early Buddhist teaching. There's a teaching direct from the Buddha. So we are mixing up our traditions a bit because the five Buddha mandala comes from later sort of stages of Buddhism. And it is something we've explored before at the Bristol Buddhist Centre. We actually get into the theme of the five Buddha mandala quite a bit. So it is one of our kind of main teaching tools as well. If you're new to Buddhism, we're getting into, with the five Buddha mandala figures. Most of you will have come across, some of these figures already. We certainly introduced them on our introductory and follow-on courses. So yeah, you've got these figures that appear. If you go to the, obviously we're online at the moment, but if you've been in the Buddhist Centre, you will have seen many of the figures around on the walls. Currently, we have the figures of the five Buddhas in the shrine room, and out in the reception room, we've got the figures of the five female Buddhas that are the companions of those of the five Buddhas of the five Buddha mandala up on the wall there as well. So yeah, I mean, all of this can seem a bit overwhelming to start with. I think a lot of people seem to report that. You get all these figures. What do they mean? Some people don't sort of expect to see that within the Buddhist tradition, particularly if you come from a spiritual background where there might be a lot of ritual or iconography and things like that. The goal of Buddhist spiritual life is something called spiritual awakening or enlightenment. This was the Buddha's experience. It's what made him the Buddha. The word Buddha means one who is awake. And to awaken means to awaken from a way of seeing the world that is not how things are in reality. And it's this not seeing the way things are, said the Buddha, and many that followed him, that causes us suffering and unhappiness. So Buddhism's developed many ways of exploring and enabling this process, and the language of myth and symbol, archetype, etc., is one of these means of exploring the goal. At the same time, these figures are a vehicle and a means. They also have a close correspondence with the nature of the goal itself. So, after our introduction last week, it's time to meet these Buddhas in more detail. So, but first of all, I'm going to say a little bit about or kind of where they live. The Buddhas appear in what's called a mandala, and mandalas they actually appear in different cultures and in different contexts. So, for instance, they appear in the Navajo Indians had mandalas. So there we are. That's a Navajo mandala. Actually, looks quite, as we'll see in a moment, it looks quite similar to a Buddhist mandala. Seems to have gateways and figures. So yes, a mandala is a representation in an image of, well, I mean, in the case of the five Buddha mandala, it's a representation, you could say, of the Buddha mind. So yeah, mandalas seem to be a natural way of expressing a kind of, in an image form, a map of, particularly a map of an internal world. Carl Jung was very interested in mandalas. In fact, it was him, I think, who did research and discovered that a mandala has appeared in these different cultures. You can also have a personal mandala. So I've done this before on retreats, so we've sometimes done it at the Buddhist Center. You can draw your own personal mandala that represents your life. So in the middle of the mandala is often put what is most important to you, and then other things around the periphery, maybe less and less important, going closer to the edges, etc. Most mandalas have a wall to them. This Navajo one seems to. Here's a personal mandala here, which is quite interesting. Sort of seems to have lots of different spiritual elements. I think it's a spiritual mandala. Seems to have crosses and Jesus and all sorts in there. So from another spiritual tradition. This is the mandala, or one image of the mandala of the five Buddhas. And the Buddhas are represented by the different colors. And this one here is the mandala that we're going to be exploring. So this is Akshobya here, Ratnasamava, Amitabha, Amoghasiddhi. If you're new to these names, don't worry about remembering them. You'll come to learn more about them over the next few weeks, and Vairochana in the middle. So yes, they're an image of completeness and wholeness and integration, and containing these different elements. So the Buddha mind that's represented by the five Buddha mandala that we're going to be exploring is made up of different aspects as well. So we've already talked about last week the idea, Satyalila I think mentioned it last week, about the idea of the five Buddhas being like a white light refracted through a prism. And you get the colors of the basic colors of the spectrum within the mandala there. And the white light is spiritual awakening or reality as it is, shining through this prism. And in the case of the Buddhas, it refracts into these various different Buddha forms. So the mandala is usually, this mandala is usually entered through the east. So in this image, the east is kind of in the south, but Akshobya is the Buddha of the east. And it's the first Buddha that we encounter in the mandala. And this is the figure of Akshobya. So he's dark blue in colour. In fact, let's go on to the next image. Oh no, you can't see that so well perhaps. Okay, we'll stay with that one. He's dark blue in colour. He sits on an elephant throne. Perhaps in the next one you can just see a couple of elephants at the bottom. This image actually belongs to the Buddhist Center. So that's one of the images is actually up in the shrine room at the moment. And it's painted by an order member that lives in Bristol called Kumada, who also painted the images in the reception room of the five female Buddhas. So yes, he sits upon an elephant throne. You can't see it because it's quite a dark image. There's a lotus there. and this symbol, the Vajra, here. So he's said to be imperturbable. Akshobya's imperturbable. I think that might mean the translation of his name as well. And he has one hand touching the earth. So elephants touching the earth, imperturbable. He's a very strong figure and very earthed and grounded. And he's associated with the transformation of anger and hatred. All of the 5 Buddhas are associated with the transformation of various different negative emotions, what are sometimes referred in Buddhism as the mental poisons. And his symbolic object, and they all have a symbolic object, is the Vajra. So the Vajra is the diamond or thunderbolt. There's one in a bit more detail up close, a brass one. They often appear like this, brass. There's probably a few of these knocking about the Buddhist center. But as a symbol, they're very, very powerful. So it's a symbol for reality, and it's said to be the diamond or a diamond or thunderbolt. So it's tremendous energy. It's adamantine. It's it's the most hard thing known to man, a diamond. So it's almost indestructible, and the Vajra is indestructible. It's said to be what happens, you get a Vajra produced when an irresistible force meets an immovable object, and the resultant emergence from those two is a Vajra. And this is Akshobya's symbol. So it represents the quality of the Buddha mind that is imperturbable, immutable. Yeah, and I'll say a bit more about that later. So everything in life is mutable. Whether we know this or not, this is certainly the Buddhist teaching, that everything arises and passes. Everything has birth and death to it. Objects change, people change, our minds change, world systems arise and fall, and galaxies and entire universes come into being and disappear. But the Buddha mind does not change. So this is what the Vajra is symbolizing. It's immutable because the Buddha mind stands outside of all conditionality. So it stands outside of all things that arise and pass away. And it's seen through everything that comes and goes, and it arrived at that which doesn't come and go. And because of this, it cannot be destroyed. Mysterious as that might sound. So each figure in the 5 Buddha mandala has a wisdom which is their particular wisdom that's associated with them. Of course, being Buddhas, they contain all the qualities of all the aspects of the 5 Buddha mandala. But the Buddha mandala helps to draw out the particular qualities of the Buddha mind for us to see them. So although Akshobya is adamantine, imperturbable, Vajra-like, he also embodies the love and the compassion of a figure like Amitabha. So the wisdom of Akshobya is said to be the mirror-like wisdom. So what does a mirror do? Well, a mirror reflects everything as it is. It reflects back all the good, all the bad, all the skillful, all the unskillful. And a mirror is completely impartial in its reflecting. It doesn't try to alter anything or put a spin on anything. And it's clear. So what it reflects is very clear. And you can say Akshobya is clarity itself. And each of the wisdoms of the five Buddhas is their most important quality. So it's what's most important about those five Buddhas is the wisdom that they carry. So meditating upon these Buddhas is done within Buddhism. So you have practices that are visualizations of the five Buddhas, where you call to mind in the mind's eye this figure, and it's a contemplative meditation where you're calling to mind the qualities, maybe by actually constructing in the mind's eye an image of this figure, or you may be contacting it in some other way. And that's in order to bring us closer to the wisdom that the Buddha or the figure represents. And if this happens, potentially it has a transformative effect upon our being. So the figure of Akshobya and all the other Buddhas and all the figures that appear in Buddhism could be seen to be like conduits. You're constructing a conduit to the awakened mind, to the transcendental, to reality itself. And through this conduit of the figure that you're visualizing, something of the quality of the wisdom, well, if we practice it for long enough, will come to us. And if this happens, it can have a hugely transforming effect upon us. So, yeah. So each of these figures, they represent, they're kind of like gateways into the awakened mind, gateways into the transcendental, as it's sometimes called, the gateways into reality. So this particular quality, this particular wisdom of Akshobya, being mirror-like, nothing sticks to it. This is one of its qualities. Nothing sticks to it. As nothing sticks to the mirror, nothing sticks to the mirror-like wisdom. What this means also is that with the mirror-like wisdom, we are creating no further karma. We might be already familiar with this idea of karma, the ways that we act that produce patternings, conditionings within the mind, the consequences of that we then experience. So if we spend a lot of time in negative states of mind, we're liable to experience negative consequences. Similarly, if we experience positive states of mind, positive consequences. So this is karma and the fruits of karma. So with the mirror-like wisdom, nothing sticks to it. So if you have the mirror-like wisdom, you don't generate any negative karma. because the mirror-like wisdom is completely in accord with the way things are. And it's not being in accord with the way things are that causes suffering for ourselves. But also the mirror is unconflicted. So a mirror never has a conflict with anything that appears in it. So it totally accepts all appearances. Guns and roses appear the same to it. Not that it doesn't care, remember it's also love, but it doesn't discriminate. And because it sees clearly everything as it is, it's always able to act appropriately. So a lot of the time, our inability to act appropriately comes out of our cloudings of the mind with our own various habits and patterns that we've built up, our various obscurations to the mirror. So yes, another quality of the mirror is that it's nothing can stain the mirror. So mirrors are like this. It's very hard for anything to stick to a mirror, and the mirror-like wisdom, nothing sticks to it. So our own minds, don't know about yours, but mine can feel pretty sticky at times and dusty and dirty. But the Dharma says that that's all the surface. And if we clean the mirror, we will sooner or later get back to the pure version of the mirror, which was never really stained. It just seemed like it was, because nothing actually sticks to the mirror of the mind. All stickiness, all dust, all dirt on the mirror are what are called adventitious defilements. Adventitious means they're added on. They're not intrinsic to the nature of the mirror, to the nature of the mirror of the mind itself. So Akshobya's mirror, you could say, is the mirror of awareness. And ultimately, awareness in its pure condition is unstainable. You cannot mark it with anything. But the analogy goes actually even deeper than this. All things that appear in the mirror, all the things that appear in mirrors, are in fact images. We know when we look into a mirror that what we see is not the thing itself. It's a reflection, an image. So what the mirror-like wisdom is also saying is that all appearances ultimately have no final fixed nature to them. Or as it's often expressed in Buddhism, they have no self-nature. And it's like this with images in the mirror. They're not really real. They have no reality of their own. So this is the mirror of awareness, the mirror-like wisdom. So this might seem a little frightening. If the mirror of wisdom, nothing that appears in it is real, might seem a little unstable and destabling, a little frightening. The mirror reflects everything, but nothing in it has any real reality to it. But at the same time, of course, this idea could be very liberating. If nothing has any final reality to it, then we can't ultimately be trapped by it. Anyway, we've probably gone far enough into the mirror for today. There's lots more associated with the figure of Akshobya. Oh, I forgot to put my image of the mirror up. For instance, the Vajra, there's all sorts of associations and all sorts that could be said about the Vajra, would require a whole talk in itself. So we might be wondering, what has this all got to do with little old me? Well, the qualities of the Buddhas and their wisdoms are really deep down qualities of our own minds. As we said with the mirror, just covered over with the dust and the dirt. So even though our mirror may not be like Akshobya's at the moment, deep down it really is. And we can contact and appreciate the qualities of the five Buddhas and their wisdoms, even without necessarily experiencing the full qualities of those wisdoms. So the meditation that's often associated with Akshobya in our system of practice here in True Ratna is the mindfulness of breathing meditation. So with the development of mindfulness, we are cleaning and polishing the mirror. When we practice the mindfulness of breathing, and indeed when we practice any meditation, things start to seem a little clearer, a little cleaner, a little brighter. We feel we start to see things more clearly and more as they are. Our lives, other people, ourselves, situations. With the practice of meditation, particularly the practice of mindfulness and the mindfulness of breathing, become a bit clearer, become a bit truer, and start to reflect more clearly what arises in them. So we're going to do a meditation now. So this is going to be a bit of an exercise so that we can come into contact, hopefully, with that mirror-like wisdom a little more, and maybe even experience something of the mirror itself, some of its qualities. So if you want to set up for meditation, we'll meditate for about 15 or 20 minutes. So establishing our posture. Making sure that we are comfortable enough. Turning our attention inwards can start with the posture. Aware of ourselves sitting here, about to go into a meditation. Just taking a moment or two to just settle. So the great aid to meditation is the physical body, awareness of the physical body. So we're going to unhook from thinking. So we've just heard a talk that's stimulated our minds, the energy maybe up in our heads. It's often where it resides. Our attention, our awareness attached to thinking. So we're going to unhook our attention, unhook our awareness from thought and come into the direct, tactile, sensate experience of the body. So we can start this by looking for the sensations in the head and face. Maybe particularly coming into those sensations around the jaw, in the jaw, around the eyes, or the lips. Finding in awareness the direct, tactile experience. If we come into the direct, sensate experience of the body, we're no longer caught up in our thinking minds, wandering here and there. And to help us ground our energy, we're going to move down through the body, down to the lower abdomen. But we're going to go down through the body, taking in the different tactile sensations as we go down. So we're becoming aware in the neck and throat area. Looking for any tactile sensations in the neck and throat. And coming down into the upper chest. Sensations in the upper chest, maybe around the heart area. Going down to sensations around the bottom of the rib cage. This is where the muscle of the diaphragm that controls our breathing is. Any sensations there? And coming down to the lower abdomen, the area below the navel. Coming into direct experiencing of the tactile sensations. So we're going to open our awareness out to take in some of the other senses. So probably our taste and smell are not operating much at the moment, but there's sound, but also thought is a sense in Buddhist meditation practice. So taking in the sounds that are in the room where you are, if there are any, or sounds outside the room, whatever sounds appear. So can we get a sense of these sounds arising in some kind of space? So I'm not talking about the idea of physical space, not even talking about the idea of inside and outside space. But they're appearing in the space of awareness. And can we get a sense of the body's different sensations also arising in this space of awareness? So all experiences that arise, sensations, sounds, are known as soon as they arise. The bodily sensation is known, the sound is known. So if we have some sense of this, of a space of awareness in which sounds, sensations are known, we also become aware of thoughts arising in this space. Can be much more subtle trying to be aware of thought. One way of doing this is just to go to the space, it's like the physical space where thoughts seem to arise. And rather than being aware of the thoughts themselves, being aware of the space, as it were, that thoughts arise in. So, get some sense of that. It may appear that thoughts just pop into this space. They just emerge from nowhere, it seems. Suddenly, there's a thought. My toe is itching. Whatever it is. So, in this space of awareness, where sensations of the body, sounds, and thoughts are arising, what is it that knows whatever it is that arises? It is clearly known that we have a sensation, there is a sound, and even a thought. Everything is known in this space. We could call it awareness, but that's just to give it a name. You might like to ask yourself the question, is it thought that knows experience? Can thought know a sensation? Can thought know a sound? Or is it, as it were, something else that is the knowing, or does the knowing? And in fact, is or does the knowing of thought? You might even like to notice that whatever appears in this space of awareness, there's no judgment about everything that appears. It's only thought that judges. Awareness just allows everything to be exactly as it is. Just like the mirror.